All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are wrapping it up here with Unit 3. We're soon going to be getting into Unit 4, so it's pretty crazy that we're coming towards the end of our first marking period. Now, when I'm looking at my coordinate grid, in our last lesson, we compared the distances between two things. And remember, when we're going to 0 and then going on beyond, we could use absolute value and add those distances together. When they're in the same quadrant, we can go to the farthest one and then subtract the middle one, so we're going to subtract absolute value. But what happens if I go to more than one place? So if I am Google Maps and I'm tracking my cell phone, and maybe I have a running app and I want to see how far Mr. W ran. Well, I'm not running necessarily in a straight line, so it needs to make a coordinate grid of the area that I'm running in and then map the distance between all of the points that I stop at. So for example, if I start here at A, and then I move over to B, and then I go down to C, and I say, well, how far did Mr. W run, right? So maybe I'm meeting my friend down here at the gym, and I'm gonna run from my house over to the convenience store and get a water bottle, and then run down to the gym so that I can meet my friends. One thing that I would look at, number one, is what is the address of each of these points? Now, just like when I'm talking to my friend and I say, well, what is your address? First off, I need to know the street, and then I need to know where on that street we intersect, or where do we intersect. So again, you can think of the street being one of these lines and the actual house number being the other, but your address might be 433 West Central. So I go to West Central, and now I have the whole street in front of me. I need to go to 433, where that comes across. So I'm looking at A, and I'm in quadrant 1. So I'm gonna go 1, 2, that's positive 2, and up 1, 2, positive 2, positive 2. I go back to B, and I go negative 1, that's where that line comes down, and positive 2, in quadrant 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Letter C over here is gonna be a negative 1, negative 2. So I've plotted out all of my points. So now, if I have the coordinate grid in front of me, I can very, very easily just go, okay, I went 1, 2, 3 points to B, and I'm gonna make a note of that. From A to B was 3. From B to C, I went 1, 2, 3, 4. I went 4, so how far did I go total? Well, from A to B was 3, plus B to C, which was 4, so I went 7 units total. So if these were city blocks, I went 7 city blocks, right? But is there a way that I can do this without a coordinate grid? Now, what happens if you get on your test and you don't have a coordinate grid? Are you allowed to draw one on some scratch paper? Absolutely. Are you allowed to make a note for yourself? Use your whiteboard. Any of those things would be perfectly acceptable. But what happens if I just have these numbers? Well, again, going back to comparing with absolute value, these are the same. 2 and the 2 are the same. So I'm looking at the absolute value of 2 added to the absolute value of negative 1, because I'm going to 0, and then I'm going beyond. They're in different quadrants, positive and negative. I'm going to add them together, and I get 3. The absolute value of 2 is 2, the absolute value of negative 1 is 1, and that gets me my 3. From there, I'm going to have the absolute value, excuse me, of positive 2, where this is, because they're both at negative 1. So I already know they're on this line. Positive 2 to negative 2. The absolute value of positive 2 added to the absolute value of negative 2, and we know that the absolute value of positive and negative 2 are both 2. So what is the absolute value of positive 2 plus the absolute value of negative 2? 2 plus 2, or 4. And when I add those two together, I'm going to get my original distance of 7. Because, again, these are on the same y-axis. They're already on this line. So I don't have to really account for that line, because I'm not moving and then dropping just to get from point A to point B. I do drop when I go from point B to point C, but they're already on the same x line. They're already on the same x factor. So I've already found that they're here. The only thing I need to find the distance of now is from A to B, I need to find the distance and absolute value of +2 to -1. And then I need to find the distance from +2 to -2, which I'll use the absolute value in them because I'm going positive to negative, I'm moving quadrants. Okay, so again, you have a coordinate grid, by all means, draw one, find one, take out your whiteboard. On the back of your whiteboards, they have one. So go ahead and use that to make yourself a little note. You can do that on any test, that's perfectly allowable. And then actually count the spaces. But if that's not enough for you, and you think that's a little cumbersome, but the absolute value, adding and subtracting, makes sense to you, then by all means, you may do that as a shortcut. But if it doesn't make sense to you, please don't do it. Don't force yourself into a strategy that isn't making sense, okay? The important thing is that you can get the answer. So again, coordinate grids moving in a story might involve more than one stop. So let's take a look at one more of these before we move on. And we're gonna talk about Diana. She's gonna leave her campsite at +2, +6. So she's a +2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, let's take it at, yep, +2, +6, which is gonna be right here. They didn't even give us a coordinate grid big enough. So this is 2 and this is 6. And this is, she's gonna hike to Redwood Grove at -5, +6. So start first, -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, +6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's gonna be at -5, +6. And from there, she's going to continue to Bass Lake at -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Run before you jump. -3, 1, 2, 3, which is -5, -3. If I'm counting them, by all means I can. I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then continue to, I'll put that 7 over here. Then continue 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So all total, she moved from her campsite to Redwood Grove. That was 7 spaces, right? Each unit on the map represents 1 kilometer, so that's 7 kilometers. And then she went from Redwood Grove down to Bass Lake, which we counted at 9 kilometers. So all total, she moved 16 kilometers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can count them out. If I don't want to go that far, I understand that right here, my y value is the same because these are on the same line. So I need to go from 2 to -5. So I'm going to take the absolute value of 2 and add it to the absolute value of -5. That's going to give me 7. There's my 7, right? And then I'm going to take these being on the same x line, x coordinate. My distance is 6, the absolute value of 6, added to the absolute value of -3, because they're different quadrants. I'm going to go to 0 and then continue on, which is going to give me 9. So once I add all those together, I still end up with 7 plus 9, which is 16. So if you need a coordinate grid, draw a coordinate grid. If you don't want to draw a coordinate grid, but it makes sense to you to figure this out using adding and subtracting of absolute value, then please do that. But the important thing is, can you solve a multi-step problem using coordinate grids?